Alright, we are back. Picking up on solving one-step equations. So in the last video we saw where we had to add opposites if we're adding or subtracting to our variable. And we saw if we have a number multiplying the variable, then we need to divide by that variable and then make sure we reduce our fraction. Now, in these two problems in numbers 9 and 11, what operation is being done with the x and the 3? It is division. So, I'm going to do this two different ways so you can see what I mean by multiplying by the reciprocal. But first of all, we're always looking to do the inverse operation. It was being added, we want to subtract, or add the opposite. If we multiplied, we want to divide. So what's the inverse of dividing by 3? It is multiplying by 3 to every term. So now, these 3's would cancel, we got our x, and that equals negative 12. And there's our answer. Now I want to explain this another way. This x over 3, you notice there's no number in front of the x. There's an invisible 1 there. Let's think about that. Let's think about that as being written as 1/3 x equals negative 4. It's the same exact problem. I actually prefer writing it this way rather this way. And on a test, on my test, I would probably write it like this rather than on future tests. Now, this is a fraction. Whenever we're given a fraction, this is where we want to multiply by the reciprocal. What's the reciprocal of 1 over 3? 3 over 1. And we're doing the exact same step. The 3's cancel, and again, we're left with negative 4 times 3 is negative 12. So you can do it either way or set it up either way, however you prefer to do it. Again, I prefer to write the fraction out. That's me. I like to see those numbers. So if I'm looking at number 11, because we're dividing by a negative 7, we can either multiply by negative 7, and I'll do that one this way. We'll multiply this problem by negative 7, because here we're dividing. We want to do the inverse. So multiply that term by negative 7. The negative 7's cancel. And again, I'm left with a positive x. And make sure this is always a positive x. And we know a positive 3 times a negative 7 is a negative number. And a 3 times 7 is 21. So again, if we're dividing by that number, we can multiply by the same number that's being divided from the x and multiplying it there. Now it's key to remember, we always want to look at which side the variable is on. In this case, we very rarely would ever want to divide by 3 here. That's just bringing more stuff over to the variables. That's what we don't want to do. Okay? A couple more problems from this to demonstrate what needs to be done. We do have fractions on this one. So, number 12. 2/3 x equals 8. Now again, what is a 2/3 doing to the variable? It's multiplying it. So we have to divide by 2/3, but wait a minute. We have to go 2/3 divided by 2/3. That's a mess. So if you think back to middle school, when you were dividing fractions, or in 5th and 6th grade when you first started, when you divide by fractions, we're actually multiplying by the reciprocal, which would be 3 over 2. And multiply by 3 over 2 here. Again, 1 3 on top, 1 on the bottom, they cancel. The 2's cancel. And we're left with our goal of the variable all by itself. Now, can I take this 2 and divide it or reduce it with the 8? Does 2 go into 8 an even amount of times? Yes. It goes in 4 times. And we're left with 2 goes into 2, 1 time there. So 4 times 3 is 12. Now, if you struggle with this, use your calculator. Go 8 times 3 divided by 2, and you will get the same answer of 12. Put it in your calculator just like that, and you'll still get the same answer. And then the last problem we're going to cover here. Number 14. 5 halves x equals negative 30. Now think about it. What number do you want to multiply by in order to get this just down to x? What's the reciprocal of 5 over 2? It is 2 over 5. If you multiply this by 2 over 5, you also have to multiply this term by 2 over 5. Go ahead and try to reduce that. Use your calculator to find your answer. We know that cancels out. And I'm going to reduce this. I know 5 goes into 30 6 times. Negative 6 times 2 is negative 12. And that's what our answer would be. We can't always reduce this. Sometimes you will be left with messy fractions. I actually prefer fractions rather than decimals because they're a lot easier to work with. Trust me, they're a lot easier to work with. It is easy to calculate 2/3 times 1/9 than 0.6667 times 0.1111. Alright? It's easier to work with. So, again, 2 things to summarize this lesson. I don't know which times. We can either add opposites, if things are being added or subtracted, or we're looking to multiply by the reciprocal, or multiply by if it's being divided, or then multiply by the reciprocal.